Hi, I'm Amy. Welcome to the kitchen at the Blue OK. Today we're making fermented pickles. And I'm excited because I'm standing here, my mouth is watering. I'm standing next to pickles, or garlic, cucumbers for making pickles, a bunch of really delicious spices, some vinegar and salt, and it already smells savory and delicious. I've got a big bowl of cucumbers here, which I don't have this many cucumbers in my garden yet, but somebody did. I found them at the farmer's market, and some of you might be in the same situation. A lot of cucumbers coming on in your garden that you don't know what to do with. So our suggestion is make pickles. They're great for you. Fermented pickles, all fermented foods are good for your digestion. They're good for your intestinal tract. So we've got a kimchi video, a sauerkraut video, and now we want to add a fermented pickle video, so you have a lot of fermented foods to add to your repertoire. And also, it's a great way to preserve food from the garden. So if you get an abundance of something all at once, you can actually keep it on hand for longer and before it goes bad. So the ingredients we're going to use today, and actually you can kind of add anything you really like to make pickles. You can play with your own spices and make your own pickling spice. I'll tell you what I used for mine, and then you can improvise to find out your own. I have a bunch of garlic chopped up here, some shallots, I have some dill seed, and also some dill heads. It's summertime, and by the time close to the end of summer, your dill will bolt and go to seed. And when you get these beautiful yellow heads, they're the best for putting in anything pickled. So those are a treasure to find. But if you don't have them on hand, you can use dill seed or fresh dill or even dried dill. And I've made a pickling spice here out of peppercorn, mustard seed. I have a little caraway seed in there, and I'm just going to add that right in with my dill seed. And a little bit of pepper is what I'm going to use today, some red pepper. They're not super spicy, but you could use a hot one if you like a little kick for your pickles, or if you want a more mild, flavorful pickle, you can use a mild chili like we have here. And then I'm using grape leaves today. They're sort of optional for making pickles. Not every recipe calls for them, but the tannins in the grape leaves actually make your pickles crunchier, or so the story goes. So I always like to use grape leaves in mine, and I think they add a nice flavor to the pickle as well. And of course, you can eat the grape leaves as well. You can actually use them and roll them up for dolmas, and they'll be a pickled grape leaf, or you can just eat them plain right out of your crock. And I have a solution sitting here. It's water, salt, and a little bit of vinegar. I already mixed mine up just so that the salt would have a chance to dissolve in that little bit of vinegar. It's just about 5% vinegar solution to the water, so it just gives it a little bit of a start for the fermenting process for that sour flavor. So what I did is I took a nice big jar and put grape leaves along the bottom. I put my garlic and threw in some of my pickling spices, some of the peppers along the bottom, and a little dill head. I might put another one in there just because it's nice to have the fresh dill right along the bottom. And, you just kind of look in there and see. You can always add a little bit more to the bottom of the container because that's where a lot of the flavor is going to come from. And then what I'm going to do is start adding the cucumbers in, pressing them in there pretty good, and layer the grape leaves and the spices on top. So you'll see me probably in the video throughout the process of piling these pickles in, adding the spices, and then when I get them about up to here, I'm going to pour the brine over the top, set the plate on, and let them go for a couple weeks. Then we'll have another video posted online in a couple weeks where we actually take the top off the pickles and taste them. So this is step one, and I'm going to start piling these cucumbers in. The main thing to know about your cucumbers is it's okay to leave the stem end on, but where the blossom is made on the cucumber, it tends to get a little bit soft. You can get bacteria growing there, or it can even get a little bit rotten. So that end you might want to clip off if there's anything around it that looks soft or like it already has something growing. So it's just a little tip. You clean your cucumbers, wash them, because you want a sterile environment for your crock. So I'm going to start piling them in. And you can just kind of press them along the bottom and then start working your way up the side walls. And you want them in there pretty good, pretty tight. The idea is to get as many pickles pressed in there as possible, and the pressure of the pickles together is what helps the fermentation process as well. So I'll maybe do 2 or 3 layers of cucumbers and then another layer of grape leaves and spices. And it also depends, you might find short cucumbers like this. These are kind of known as pickling cucumbers. They're warty along the outside. But you could use any kind of cucumber you find, really, to make a pickle. So if you have short ones like this variety, you might put them in sideways. But if you were using a long cucumber, you might put them in vertically and use a plate on top to weight them down. So, it's really, pickles are fun to make because you can get creative with them. Sometimes I'll add onion in here and there'll be onion pieces floating around, or carrot. With the cucumber, you can kind of play with it because whatever other vegetable you put in there is going to get pickled as well. So that looks, one more layer, and I'm going to add another round of spices. So right about there, I might throw in another handful of garlic, onion, dill seed, peppers, and then a couple grape leaves, and then the same thing. Hit them with a little bit more spice, a little more flavoring, and then another layer. So we're getting near the top. It looks like time for another layer here of spices. I'm going to throw a little garlic right underneath my grape leaves, and then some right on top as well. That way I get some on the top, some on the layer underneath. I get a little extra spice for that. A bunch of dill seed in there, and we were talking about making these pickles on camera. We decided that we don't think you can put too much dill in dill pickles because, when you're making dill pickles, who doesn't love the flavor of dill? And I do, so I tend to put a lot of dill seed into mine. So at this point, I might press down a little and just see how many pickles I can pack in this last area of my jar. Because when you go through the trouble of making pickles, you want to try and get as many into your jar as possible, because I'm going to be enjoying them for a long time to come. As you can see, we're nearing our final layer, and I left a couple of the longer, odd-shaped pickles for the top, because sometimes you get a little more space at the top, or you have a little room, and you can kind of lay them right in some of those nooks that you might have left. So we're right at the top of our pickling jar here, and I'm going to seal it with the rest of my spices and some grape leaves on top. Mustard seed's another thing that you almost can't put too much of into the dill pickles, but get a nice amount of dill in there. And I'm going to put this last dill head right on top. Get the flavor from that in the pickles, and then some grape leaf right on top of that. And my brine is going to go right on top of this. And so you actually are going to use less brine, than the amount of your jar, because you've got pickles packed in there or cucumbers packed in there. So you're just going to watch it. It's easy actually to overflow, but just going to start pouring your brine mixture in. There we go. So right at the top, and I'm going to put this plate on just to push everything down a little bit, and I'll show you is our finished pickling creation. Looks like art to me. You can either put a weight right on top, and the same thing's going to happen as happens with your kimchi or sauerkraut. You're going to keep all the cucumber underneath the line of the liquid, of the brine. And that way, if you get any mold along the surface or anything like that, you just scoop it out. But everything under that liquid line is going to be safely fermenting with no harmful bacteria inside it. And you can see it just looks beautiful. All the colors are great. I like to put something red in there just because you get a little bit of color in there with the green. Join us when we come back to open up these pickles and taste them when they're nice and crispy. That should be a couple weeks from now. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them right here on the website for me. And remember, the eating gorilla always comes in peace.